All right, for the second video, we're going to finish everything up. We created our first web folder. Okay, this container here is going to have everything that is going to be on our website. We have an images folder. We have no pictures yet, but we're going to be using that. Then index, and then styles.css. You have to have an index page whenever you're putting it up to a web server, because that's what's going to be served back if you just type in the domain name. And then styles.css, you can call that whatever you want. Just tends to be, that's what we call it, styles.css. And then we drag that folder, first web, over to Sublime Text, and then we started writing some HTML. We started with the head section. This one right here is probably one of the most important ones. This says that we have a responsive website, which means that it changes based upon the size of the screen. All right, we started writing some HTML. Now we're going to go ahead and type some more HTML. So this is what we want it to look like, and so we need to make it that. Now we have all these different semantic web header, nav, article, aside, and footer. And article and aside are actually inside another one called section. So let's go ahead and build that. First thing we want to do is put a container for all these other elements, and that container is going to be main. Okay, you can only have one main, use only one main HTML. For every other HTML element, you can have as many on the page as you want, but you can only have one main, and that's what we have here. Inside that main, we also have a header. So I'm going to type header, and again, when I press tab, it's going to complete it. Now, the thing is, what we want to do is we want to have each one of these elements have a 1 pixel border. So we need to go ahead and create a style for that, because that same style is going to be through all of these. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a class, and that class is going to be called box. And the attribute for that is simply going to be a border. And we're going to use some shorthand for that, and that is we're going to say that the width is going to be 1 pixels. The style that we want is going to be solid, and the color is going to be black, so that's RGB 0, 0, 0. So black is the absence of all colors. And now what we need to do is assign that to our HTML elements. So we have a header here. That header is going to have a class of box. And to see where that is, we're also going to put a paragraph in there, and we're going to call that header, just as a placeholder. So let's see what we have so far. File, save all, go back to our page and refresh. And there it is. So there's our header with our 1 pixel around that. We also want to have main also be part of that box. So we'll do class and box. And then we'll do file, save all, and refresh. And you can see now we have actually a 2 pixel border, 1 pixel for main and the other one for that, because one is inside the other. So let's go ahead and create the other boxes that we need. So after header, we have nav. Inside nav, let me do that again. Getting ahead of myself. We want nav also to be a class of box. So if I type nav dot box and then press tab, it's going to automatically put that class in there. And then we're going to have a paragraph, and that paragraph is going to be nav, just so that we can see what's inside each one of those. Say after nav, we're going to have section. Section doesn't have a border around it because it has 2 elements with borders inside it. So inside section, we're going to have article, and that article is going to have a class of box. And inside that is going to have just a paragraph. You see sometimes it drops like that. If I go back and then press tab, it puts it in. And this is going to be article. And then also we have an aside dot box. And inside that is going to be a paragraph. I don't know why it does that. And this is going to be aside. And then the last one we have is, whoops, be careful. I don't want to put the footer inside of section. So it's header, nav, section, footer. Inside section is those two. So it's important to make sure that you don't put the footer inside the section. So that's footer.box. And inside there is a paragraph. Footer. All right, well, let's go ahead and see if that works. We'll do File, Save All, and then refresh. Boom. So now we've created all the HTML for that. Now we're ready to go ahead and put some styles in. So let's go back now to our styles part of that. And there's a couple of things I want to do. One is in main, I don't want everything to go all the way across. So I'm going to do main. And for main, I'm going to give it a width. Now, I want you to put 1200 in because you have a wide screen. I have a very narrow screen, so I'm going to put 600 in for me. But for you, just put in 1200 just so you can see how this all works. And then I'm going to have a margin. Well, let's do that first. And let's do File, Save All, and refresh. All right, so it looks like that, but if I bring this out, you can see that it's all the way over on the left-hand side. I want this centered. Text align center works on text, works on inline and inline block elements, but doesn't work on block level elements like this because this header actually spans the entire container. What we want to do is center this box within this box here. And the only way we can do that is with margin. So right now I have all this empty space on this side and no space on that side except for a little bit of margin that the body has. So I need to go in there and use margin to move it over. So if I did margin left 200 pixels and then did File, Save All. So that's going to put margin on the left-hand side, and I refresh it. You can see it moves it over nicely. But that's not going to work depending on the size of the screen. You can see that's not going to be working the way I want it. So what I want to do is I want to use a different margin. I'm just going to say margin 0 pixels, and that means that the first number goes top and bottom. I don't want to change the margin that we're using for everything else for the top and the bottom, but left and right, I wanted to say whatever space is there, put it equal on both sides. And we use the keyword of auto or the property of auto to tell it to do the math for us. And then I'll do File, Save All, and so we can see a difference. Now I'll refresh it, File, Save All, and refresh. You can see now it's always going to stay in the center. In fact, so if I put 1200 here, my problem is File, Save All. It's going to shove it over way too far. See, I want you to have that on your page because you're going to be using the whole screen. So I'm just using half the screen. So I'm going to put 600, File, Save All, and refresh. There we go. All right, so let's go ahead and do some more. I'm going to use some colors. So I want header. And I want to use a background color. So background color. And for that, I want it to be like a wheat. So if I take a look at my favorite site, and that's htmlcolorcodes.com, and I go into the names section, this is going to give me 140 different colors I can use. I could use a name if I wish, but that's not what we want to do as a web professional. We want to use RGB. You can use either hex or RGB. Hex is the old style. They both give us 16.7 million colors. There's wheat. I really want to just use this RGB here. So if I copy that, the problem is they use capital RGB, Control V, and when I put it here, Sublime Text doesn't like it. This should be all lowercase. So remember, we use everything RGB. And then we do File, Save All, and refresh. Boom. All right, and then we have the next one is going to be the nav. We want that to be a different color too. Nav, background color. And for that, we want that to be a aqua type color. So let's go find that. And it's up in the top. Here it is, aqua. I copy that, paste it in, semicolon, change the RGB to small. Just be careful it doesn't put another set of parentheses in there. File, save all, and refresh. Okay, and then I just continue doing it through the magic of automation. Boom, there are the rest of the colors. So we'll do File, Save All, and refresh. And now we have all those in there. So remember, whenever you're using colors, and you can see that when I mouse over it, shows the styles that we're using RGB. I always go to color codes in the name section. You can actually, like I said, 16.7 million colors. So if you go to a picker, it's going to give you a way of being able to pick those through here. So we start moving that down. You can see there are all the different kind of colors we can. And then once I get into a certain color like green, it could be anywhere from a very, very light green to a very, very dark green. And it's going to give me the RGB values and the HSL values and the CMYK values. These right here are used by the artsy-fartsy people. I just can't get my head around the way they do these kind of colors. RGB makes a lot of sense to me. And you'll see that in websites, 90% of them are using the RGB codes. But like I said, if you're good and you're artistic and you might find the HSL or CMYK values a little more understandable to you than RGB. But we're going to be using RGB all the way through this class. All right, that's it, and we're going to be on to the next lesson.